Welcome back, Jeff.
Thanks, sir.
And joining us from Washington, D.C. is Kevin Martin, who's with Project 21. Kevin, good to see you.
Good to see you too, buddy.
All right, so that Super Bowl of conservative events was held and ended this past weekend, otherwise known as CPAC 2014. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with Paty Newman. What stands out at you about CPAC 2014?
Well, first, how One American News was prominently mentioned throughout the event. That was pretty
thank you for mentioning that. That was very cool, yeah.
Of course, I was happy to see Rand Paul and Ted Cruz. I think that was the good of the event.
Rand Paul winning a second consecutive straw poll.
Right, and Ted Cruz coming in second. It was, what was bad? Bad was Mitch McConnell with his gun, flying in the sky.
Tell our viewers what happened.
Well, he shows up to give his speech, and I think it was just like a prop to make, I don't know, there were a lot of NRA attendants, and he wanted to look like one of them.
Yeah,
so this was after he had made a comment about, crushing the Tea Party. So, that was.
And his opponent, Matt Bevin's been on this show a few times. Before we go with our panel guest, you're not so happy with the fact that an atheist conservative group got disinvited.
Right. I think we need to be more inclusive. Everybody should have a voice. Jeff, the occupier guy, should have a voice, and so should I, and so the atheists. The more people talking about it, then there's a true competition for ideas.
I tend to agree with you, Paty Newman. I think that someone, a self-described conservative atheist, should be allowed, not only allowed, but welcome to attend. It gets down to your definition of conservatism. Let's go to Kevin Martin in Washington, D.C. Kevin, what's your thoughts on this idea? First of all, winners, losers, the ugly at CPAC to you?
The winners are definitely Rand Paul and Ted Cruz. The good that I saw was a lot of diversity, young people at CPAC. I was there myself. The bad, CPAC was not advertised real well this year, and the ugly was Mitch McConnell's Elmer Fudd moment. I mean, the guy came across. I haven't seen anything that bad since bad episode of Looney Tunes, and that really wasn't a bad episode.
Hey, Kevin,
he came across like Elmer Fudd.
Hey, Kevin, didn't Ted Cruz belong on the losers list, though, for that joke about Bob Dole and President Romney? Didn't that fall kind of flat? I thought Ted Cruz kind of alienated some of his...
No, I think a lot, and I was about to mention that too. I think a lot of establishment Republicans and others had a big problem with it because it was the truth. You nominate these moderates, they basically run out. They try to. Well, I have the appeal. I can win. Bob Dole lost. John McCain lost, Mitt Romney lost, and now you have all these establishment Republicans running around talking about they're going to crush the Tea Party in 2014, but they have yet to win a presidential election. Boehner wouldn't even be Speaker of the House if it wasn't for the Tea Party. So how can Ted Cruz be wrong? The man is right.
And let's go to...
You stop nominating...
Go ahead, Kevin. Finish your thought.
You stop nominating these moderates who hold their finger up to the wind and want to be the friend of the in the Beltway, inside the Beltway media, and maybe they'll actually win on conservative principles.
There you go.
And let's go to Jeff Olson. Jeff, you're an Occupy activist. You watched CPAC closely on television.
It's true, yeah. I enjoy C-SPAN.
I'm curious what your thoughts were of CPAC as an Occupy activist.
It's interesting. There are certain people that talk a talk that really rings a bell. There are some folks that talk about reining in Wall Street and issues that make really good common sense, but then you've got the folks like Sarah Palin talking about green eggs and ham and proving what kind of reading category she's in, and
was funny.
But then we're missing the point of green eggs and ham. I mean, the point of the book is try it, you might like it. It's not she quotes the part about we don't like this and we don't like that, but the point of green eggs and ham is try it, you might like it.
Excuse me, my friend. excuse me, my friend, we got a president who can't even put an E in respect. Okay? and you're beating up Sarah Palin? I mean, this man can't even get this man doesn't even know the meaning between a Marine corpsman and a Navy corpsman, and I used to be in the Navy. One is a fighting man, the other's a medic. But he's the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military.
Right.
Green eggs and ham, or solid E in respect. Which one's the biggest problem here?
Well, Sarah was there, but she was in good company. Michelle Bachmann was there, and Ann Coulter, and Donald Trump. And are you ready to get on board with Trump for president?
I don't think Trump. I think Trump is the greatest self-marketer. I don't believe he'll run for president. Do you disagree, Paty Newman? Do you think he's going to run for president?
No, I wouldn't vote for him. But, the whole point is, how can you say you want more voices, you want other opinions, and then start criticizing immediately the ones that are out there? And the whole point with Palin was, it was funny.
Humor.
It was funny.
That was what Ted Cruz said about his Romney and Dole joke, too. That was an attempt at humor, I guess.
Now, Kevin, you were there, and you said there was tremendous diversity, and you underscored the number of young people. And last year when I was there, last year when I attended, I think there was something like 60 to 70% of the attendees were under the age of 35, if my memory serves me accurately. There's a Pew poll out today that's being publicized by the Washington Post, which says that Republicans have a problem with the youth. Do you believe that Republicans can reach out across the? What's interesting to me, before I go on further with the question, what's interesting to me, Kevin Martin and Paty Newman and Jeff Olson, is that today's millennials seem to have more trust in big government to solve problems than any other generation in the past. Your thoughts on youth in the Republican Party, Kevin Martin?
Because, first of all, these youth have been sold the idea that government can solve all their problems. Mommy and daddy takes care of them. Oh, my God, we have an 18-year-old suing her parents right now. Okay, and the partial ruling says they're entitled to take her health care until she's 26. But really what happens to a lot of these millennials, they're getting out of college, they're getting their first job, and when they get their first paycheck after everyone's told them that government can take better care of you, they're looking to see FICA, Social Security, taxes, local taxes, state taxes, federal taxes, health care, and they're like, wait a minute, well, what happened to all these promises? But the problem with the Republican Party is you have this current crop of strategists and party activists who have no idea how to get the young vote. Okay, they basically are there to get their 6 to 7 figure checks. Right. Go down to K Street, we'll get a title, and then it used to be in the 80s when these kids got out of college and they got their first 2 or 3 paychecks. They just said, all of a sudden, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican. Government's not good for me. Why am I paying for all this? Now you have the Affordable Care Act. You have all these taxes heaped upon them, and there's no one in the Republican Party that can say, hey, there's a better way. Come and look at this. No, they're more interested in their checks down on K Street and things like that than the whiteboard. I mean, my God.
This culture of...
Why is Karl Rove still...
Go ahead, Kevin.
Why is Karl Rove still relevant? It's still relevant right now.
Yeah. Jeff Olson, there are a lot of, as Occupy, I keep bringing it up because that's your background.
That's okay,
yeah. You are not for big government, are you?
No, I'm for fair government. I'm for, that was something I picked up at CPAC. Rick Perry said the government ought to secure the border and deliver the mail on time, and preferably on Saturday too. That's the kind of government that I want. I want kids off the street because they're in public schools during the day. I want roads that are paved and sidewalks that don't have cracks. I mean, that's the kind of government that people deserve and that people want. I don't want a government that's listening in on phone conversations and forcing me to strip to board a flight, or that sets up a roadblock on a street at night because they're doing drunk driving enforcement.
Right.
I mean,
there's a lot of commonality there.
Yes.
Paty Newman,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I mean, my God, I'm actually agreeing with someone from.
Exactly. See? You know why?
Go ahead,
because he's a young man. I think we're underestimating the youth. They are not signing up for Obamacare. They are not buying the stuff this big government's selling. And at least my kids are libertarian. I mean, they're young, they're in their 20s, and they, we're discussing about the way that the Republican Party just doesn't know how to approach this group. It doesn't know how to approach a lot of groups because of that, because it splits people into groups.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little about what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. You'll never believe who said that he doesn't agree with the notion that that Vladimir Putin does not fear Barack Obama. We'll continue with more with our panel right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Now we continue with our Grassroots citizen panel. And, of course, we have the crisis in Ukraine and Crimea with Russia. And the narrative on the right pretty much is that this is an indication of the lack of respect, the lack of fear which the international community, i.e. Vladimir Putin, the bad guys, have for our President Barack Obama. And it's based upon the notion that President Obama, of course, drew a red line and never honored it. And so the thinking goes that no wonder Vladimir Putin had no fear in moving forward with Crimea and now perhaps Ukraine. But you'll never guess who stood up and said, no, I don't think Vladimir Putin believes our president is not weak. I just think he feels he's not consistent. And that was former advisor to President H.W. Bush, James Baker. And as his supporting argument, he says, look, if Putin only knew which he probably does, what went into capturing and killing Osama bin Laden, then he would fear Barack Obama. What's your take on that, Paty?
My take was...
You can't answer with a straight face, huh?
No, I can't. It's surprising to me that he thinks inconsistent. I think he's consistently weak, not inconsistent. Leading from behind, this is what he's been doing. Just playing devil's advocate for a moment, any credence to the argument, look what we did to Osama bin Laden? I don't think so. I mean, that was the special forces that did that. That was,
and it was a one person. It wasn't a republic we're taking on. Go ahead.
I think the presidential palace in Moscow is a pretty long way from Abbottabad, Pakistan, and a hideout. Putin is extremely confident. It's.
Do you feel, Jeff Olson? I'm interested in your point of view as someone who represents Occupy. Do you feel that Putin has no fear of Barack Obama, President Obama, as a result of this?
I don't think he fears anyone. He is a cold-blooded, calculated, intelligence community, KGB guy. Yeah. I mean, he is the furthest thing from a popular Democratic leader that you could possibly imagine. He's their George H.W. Bush. CIA to the presidency, KGB to the presidency. He's their Bush, but without the charisma of George H.W. Bush,
and without the kindness. I mean,
exactly, without the Barbara Bush.
All right, let's Kevin. Kevin, Mark, go ahead.
Let me put some reality into this. Okay, Putin is looking to the future. And going into Ukraine, going into Odessa, going into Crimea, going into Georgia, he's setting up for Russia to be the largest exporter of oil in the next decade.
Bingo.
Okay, he knows that he controls Crimea. He's got a year-round open sea port, Black Sea. He knows if he controls over there in Odessa and Georgia, he's got access to the Caspian Sea, which means a pipeline running through Iran,
that's right,
even a pipeline running through Afghanistan.
99%
the oil reserves in the Middle East.
Putin's power comes from the high price of oil.
It's drying up. It's drying up. In the next 10 years, Russia will be the largest exporter of natural gas, oil, and Putin is setting this thing up. After the Cold War, Putin did what Putin was going to do. He moved all those troops from the Eastern Europe border down to the south. You got T-90 tanks down there, Spetsnaz Special Forces. This was a Spetsnaz operation from the start. They got past the Olympics. All these so-called masked men running around in Crimea, that was nothing more than special forces, because we saw the same thing in Afghanistan in 1979.
Jeff Olson,
Putin is setting up for the future.
You agree with Kevin Martin? Yeah. He makes a persuasive argument.
Yeah.
Do you support the Keystone Pipeline?
Absolutely not. Why should we take the risk to allow Canada to sell oil to China? How's that in our interest?
That Keystone Pipeline comes down to the U.S.
Yeah, and it'll create about 50 permanent jobs. And if it spills in your backyard, you're responsible for the cleanup.
So let's not have self-reliance for our own energy needs.
It's not about us.
And let's
We're not gonna use that oil.
Let's defer to the KGP master for the world's energy needs.
That dirty, dirty tar sands oil is going from Canada to China, leapfrogging over the U.S.
Let me ask you one question. You said 50 jobs. Okay, so the next time we send a probe to Mars and it employs 50 people, okay, and rockets blow up all the time, that's kind of toxic, isn't it? So maybe we shut down NASA.
People live in the Aglalo aquifer that this pipeline's going to go right through, and hundreds of thousands of people drink that water every single day.
People live on Earth when rockets explode.
But back to Ukraine and Putin.
He brings up a good point. I'm astounded that you don't want to see the greater independence of U.S. oil supplies when you agree that this is a pure economic oil play.
That's right. I'm for the T-Boone Pickens plan, honestly. Get off oil, get onto natural gas, then get onto wind and solar with a baby step process.
That's when the market.
T-Boone Pickens knows what he's talking about. I mean,
okay, so you do support natural gas.
Let me ask you one question. Let me ask the Occupy Wall Street for one question. When an earthquake happens, what happens? Oil bubbles up out the ground. Thank you.
But it's not a renewable resource. It's made of dinosaur bones, and once we tap all the oil, it's gone.
It's like I told a friend of mine. What happens to the human body when it dies? We turn into dust in about 1,000 years. Somebody will pull me out the ground and hopefully put me in someone's gas tank and they're still using oil. Oil is a renewable resource. People and plants die every day.
Before you do, Paty, I want to let Jeff Olson know that I too agree with the Pickens plan. I want this Keystone Pipeline and I want the Pickens plan. Go ahead.
Going back to Crimea and the whole, Putin versus Obama, I just want to throw out there the fact that these two guys are not that different from each other. That you have to consider that while Putin is got the iron fist to control his media and it's really blatantly brutal over there, you have a guy here running our government that uses its bureaucracies to try to quiet down certain groups. Sure. They both think the state should take care of their people. Collectivism is beautiful.
And of course, if I could interject, of course, in the interest of time, making your point, Paty Newman, we've seen the World Media Watchdog Organization list the U.S. media as now ranked 46th in the world for transparency. So your point is an interesting one. It's a shame. We're about out of time. I want to thank our panel, Paty Newman, healthcare expert, Occupy Wall Street advocate, Jeff Olson, and from Project 21, always a pleasure to have Kevin Martin catch up with us. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for being part of our panel, all three of you. I want to thank you, our viewers, for watching. We're right back at you again tomorrow, same time. And now I leave you with our Amato meal moment of the day. You're never too busy to thank a veteran.
Thank you. God bless. You're doing a good job. Get right into it. Let's go after it. Thank you for your sweetness. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Thank you.